In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those who do nothing but watch. Watch the capes and watch the lunatics go mad. They are the watchers. And this is Nuff Said. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz, once again to the end of the world as we know it. I don't feel that fine about it, though. It's a pretty rough go.
What was it? The Mayans predicted it was 2012? Was it that everything was...
He transposed.
Clearly, right?
Yeah. But tonight's episode, what if zombies? Which I love the fact that had to be the pitch meeting. Zombies?
Enough said.
We want to do a Marvel zombies. It's technically a what if.
Sold.
Just what if zombies. Sold. It's got a built-in fan base. My youngest, one of them.
Although I will say, I have a lot of questions.
Okay. Well, let me we got to give credit where credit is due. When the Avengers are infected by a zombie plague, surviving heroes search for a cure. Writers A.C. Bradley is our head writer. Matthew Chauncey, that story editor. Jack Kirby, of course, gets that Captain America created by credit, along with longtime friend Joe Simon. Jim Starlin gets that Thanos created by credit. Our director this week is Brian Andrews. And of course, the regular old gang of heroes is here. And man, so let's open up with, what is your biggest concern, my friend Mozz?
It's Captain America. Isn't he supposed to be aren't his cells supposed to be super? So how are they able to be zombified? It just seems like, if either a zombie virus got into him or Wolverine, I wouldn't expect it to propagate.
Well, actually, with Captain America, Wolverine, you always have that cellular necrosis issue. Which is sort of why zombie Deadpool is an interesting aspect because his cells are already necrotic. But with Captain America, there is a strong argument to be made that because this virus overwhelms the system, that it then uses Steve's own more efficient cellular processes to spread itself faster. They become a more dominant virus. I mean, there's lots of ways you can look at it. The zombie universe is plagued with a lot of nerds who say, there's no way that character could have become zombified. Whether it's the Hulk or Silver Surfer, someone always wants to say why it's impossible. But they still do it because it's cool, man!
Right. Fair enough. I mean,
no one cares that Galactus is an esoteric entity and a force of nature. Let's make him a zombie, too.
Fair enough. I mean, why not? The series should have been called Why Not What If. Yeah, well, in this case. But I liked their take on how... And it's interesting because it's... and as we say, this is the second time Hank Pym destroys the world. And in both cases, it's always about him not taking the course he does in the MCU. In the MCU, his course is to be reserved, to respect the forces he's dealing with, and to slow down. In this world, this is him going too quickly, too fast. What do you think is the big difference that butterflies its way towards that change? Well, there is here's an interesting argument for you. Okay. So let us say that in this universe, immediately after Ant-Man, the Ant-Man film, Hank dusts out his vessel once he knows you can go to the quantum realm and survive.
he's gonna just go in like Reed Richards with, a funding just got cut. He's gonna go steal the rocket and go to space. Dang the consequences. And in this one, he makes this choice early, and then when you come to this idea that time does not flow the same way in the quantum realm, and we do see that quantum energies can have weird effects on physical beings, like the ghost, maybe that the zombie existence of Janet Van Dyne was always something that occurred, but, she got better in the quantum realm. In the quantum realm, it was a virus that she worked her way through. And in the human realm, once it's out here, you never get that chance to have that infinite time loop to get better in. So an interesting thing, recently someone had realized that the most interesting thing about rabies is that likewise rabies kills you by exhausting your body. But that by the time rabies has killed you, your body has really finally started to mount the proper defense against it. And someone realized that if you could put someone into a medically induced coma with rabies, like if you couldn't give them because it was too late to give them the shots to cure them, if you put them in a medically induced coma, fed them with IV saline drips, you could possibly have the human naturally recover from rabies.
So is the only thing preventing people from recovering from rabies is that their body is trying to also live?
Basically, yeah. Well, because that's basically it. It's like your body.
Wow, interesting.
It's that it's almost impossible for your body to handle all of the things that are going on with it. Especially one of the key factors of rabies is severe dehydration and excessive production of saliva. And it makes it almost impossible. It makes it so you can't swallow and you want to bite people or bite things. So it's really the origin of the zombie virus itself. So it is theoretically possible that in the quantum realm, zombie virus is something that is there, but that people eventually, because of the time loops, because of the way that they go, you grow out of it. But because Hank Pym came at just the wrong time, when Janet Van Dyne was infected with the zombie virus, and then he goes back because probably like Hope in this story, he has that open window where he's still in control enough to get back home, and that was his mistake. That had he realized he was already doomed and he let himself be doomed, then the problem would have solved itself.
I'm still thinking about the virus and how it would react in the quantum realm, depending on how time reacted. Like, if Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym had decided to consummate and had a baby in the quantum realm, that baby would have been born, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
right. So what I'm thinking is that the virus or the bacteria, whatever it is in her, the zombie thing, has had others, viruses to copulate with, and it's had generations and generations to evolve and turn into a much stronger, different kind of thing. And that's why it was finally able to beat her. It's been fighting this battle in this place that time doesn't exist, but they have an endless amount of time to reproduce and create more of themselves.
I'm not going to go too deep into that. It's a very complex question as to how the zombie virus really works. But obviously, it worked. That's what it comes down to is that you need a reason for a zombie virus to get into the universe, and this was as good as any. Because it really is just about we want to have this story, and here's a way we can introduce zombies. So here's the thing. This is just a complete random thing. So. Just a few minutes ago, for next week's episode, which is the one that drops tomorrow for us, they have what is essentially that TVA time stream where they have written in text what's happening, and then they have someone erase what was there and write in what happens in the what if. And it's like, that was like a really weird thing.
Huh.
I don't know if that was planned or if that was just a marketing choice to make right now. But it makes me think, just for future stuff, that we're going to have a situation where we're going to find out that there are people at the TVA rewriting stories.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, so I think that is an interesting possibility. We'll have to see. But in this story, and to bring it back to where it starts, it opens up with, the Hulk arriving on Earth, and the Hulk, as Bruce sort of doesn't know where everyone is, and puts on Wong's outfit, which I think is nice because it is purple. So it's totally on brand. And he goes out, and that's when the children of Thanos arrive and tell him about the glory, which is also kind of funny. It's like they're arriving on this planet, and they didn't hey, is everybody been zombied down there? Should we just it's like, dude, did you scan the planet before you showed up?
Yeah, really. They were way too comfortable with it, like an open micer used to no audience and just getting his jokes out. He was running his routine like it was practice.
Yeah, well, he does this all the time.
Right.
It's like, man, that's why we got a checklist. You got to double check it. I'm sure, what's his name? Cull Obsidian. I think that's the big guy. Or maybe that's, Black Dwarf. I don't remember exactly what his name is, but the big guy, he was like, oh man, I gotta tell you, we really gotta check these notes here. I don't know. This street is way too deserted for a planet that's supposed to have 8 billion people. This is supposed to be the city center of one of the most populous cities in the world. I don't think we should go down there, man. I think we should nuke it from orbit, end it now.
Right, there's nobody left to harvest. They're all been harvested by something else. Move on to a different planet.
Which is the real horror of this episode is how bad it's gotten. We get 5 humans, and by the end, spoilers for the episode, 2 humans and a head.
Yeah.
Get 2.5 humans.
But it's crazy to think about, if all the Avengers did decide to go crazy, the world is over.
Well, I mean, if there's something else happening, there's always the argument, there's always new heroes to rise against a threat like Thanos, that even after a Thanos thing, there's going to be somebody left and somebody's going to avenge us, as it were,
I find it interesting that when they turn into zombies, they still hold on to a piece of who they are. Cap still fights like Cap. He knows all his own moves, right? And Thanos at the end has his gauntlet. And he's like, I'm going to do bad stuff with it. There's that piece of them, that impetus of being is still there. I wonder what that means. Or is it just because it's cool also?
Well, I mean, yes and yes. So in the original Marvel Zombies comics, the zombies were sentient.
Oh, interesting.
They were well
I like that.
The comics, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they were very sentient, and some of them didn't feel guilt. The hunger was too much pain.
They're basically ugly vampires, where it's they know who they were, but they also have been corrupted morally because this is what they have this feeling of hunger that cannot be sated in them, and so they have to seek this way to sustain themselves. Oh yeah, spoiler alert! Yes.
In the comics, even though later comics they kind of
yeah.
the second comic, the original version ends.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Anyway.
In the second comic, they realize that they actually don't feel hungry anymore.
Yeah. If you go cold turkey on humans, you eventually lose the urge to eat humans. So,
interesting. I didn't.
Yeah, that was what and that's what Spider-Man does. It's he's an alcoholic, and he's every day and every way I'm not eating humans. 12 steps, man.
Huh.
You gotta do the work, and you just know you can't. Not even one human. Okay, eat one human. It's gonna put you right back on the train. But yeah, so basically it's That is one variation on this. Now, there are many, 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 many different variations on the Marvel Zombies universe. There are almost as many different Marvel Zombie universes as there are regular superhero Marvel universes.
Interesting.
Interestingly enough, two characters in the comics became very neatly tied into them, who were, of course, Battlestar, who is Lamar Hoskins, who sadly is dead in the MCU. But wouldn't that be a great way to bring him back?
Wait, who was Lamar Hoskins?
Battlestar. That was John Walker's partner.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah,
right,
so,
but they can bring people back.
Yeah, but so Battlestar in the Marvel comics, in the zombie comics, he gets put in charge of effectively fighting off zombie invasions. They said, yeah, we need a dude, and a lot of the superheroes, we don't want them knowing about the zombie verses. I mean, some of them know, and some of them have a passing fancy, but they don't need to know how often we're doing this. And quite frankly, you're really good at your job. And they eventually pair him with Howard the Duck, which works out great. And I think they are a fantastic team. Lamar Hoskins and Howard the Duck fighting zombies. Chef's kiss as a book. But anyway, getting back to this story. Peter's going through some stuff.
Everybody, Hulk is going through his thing.
Yeah, well, what's funny is that Hulk's still just doing the same stuff he was going through as Banner. Because it's the same. Because it's the same. Oh, the big guy doesn't want to come out right now. He's horrified by zombies, but it's like, to him, and this is maybe just sort of reality of being a guy who's been on the run for so long, and it's some of his friends he's seen as zombies yet. It's like, it's almost like a Tuesday for him in this sense. It's like, I've been kind of out of it for a while, and it's not hitting him as hard.
Right.
But the thing about Peter is he is very much, the idea with Peter Parker and Spider-Man in general is how much his outward joviality is a coping mechanism for his immense insecurity and fear and doubt and trauma he's experienced because of the actions he's taken and that have led to other things. Which is one of the biggest notes about this episode is this is the first canonical MCU reference to Uncle Ben.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, there is one scene where in Far From Home, where you see the BFP initials on his luggage, but I don't even think they say that it was his uncle's suitcase. That's just the luggage he has. And so, yeah, that was a big deal for some people, myself included, because we really had never gotten that before. This idea that, Ben Parker, one of the most central characters of the of the Spider-Man franchise, is now getting his mention, and that's a big deal. I
think it was just as big a deal that they never did mention it because everybody was so tired of rehashing that over and over again. So,
I mean, there's lots of reasons to do it. Well, actually, no, that's why you don't have to show it every time. But it's such a central thing to let people know that there was an Uncle Ben. I think that it actually does carry some weight and gravitas. But as it goes. We get a little comedy bit at the start where we're doing this little how to survive a zombie apocalypse thing, which is just ridiculous in its own way. And yet again, it's this overcompensation after really, let's face it, he's lost Mr. Stark, he's lost Aunt May, he's lost Uncle Ben. There's even that scene where he says, Aunt May always used to say, Yeah. And then he loses Happy too. And it's really starting to get to him. And that's the thing. It's like, this is poor Pete
getting ground under the gears, and it's not fair for poor Pete. I'll tell you that. But then again, that's
why
Parker
you're a
Love
superhero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he gets more than his share. Really, he does. I mean, Dead Girlfriends, Clone Sagas, the whole mess.
Yeah.
It never gets any better for poor Peter Parker.
I was afraid we were going to get a zombie Hulk.
Well, that's that interesting question. We don't actually see anyone die from our main core. Even Kurt, we don't actually see him die. We assume he dies.
What about, Janet Van Dyne? She doesn't die, does she?
No, she dies. She dies.
Right. Oh, okay.
She's one of the few people who does die. But when we get to the end, so Kurt dies off screen, Okoye dies off screen. What's his name? Winter Soldier dies off screen. Bucky Barnes dies off screen. And likewise, we never see the Hulk die. So it is entirely possible that if we ever revisit this universe, which there are those that, if you saw the recent drops for the rest of the season, you get the idea we might be coming back here. We could see Winter Soldier again, because again, his nice juicy arm is off the menu, as the Vision said. We might see Okoye, because as it turns out, she's still Dora Milaje, and it doesn't matter. It's like,
right.
She is ready to fight Wanda Maximoff with all of her powers and just take that head right off.
We can't get Cap back, right? He was cut in half. There's nothing, but I mean,
no,
Cap, animated half.
Actually, no. So that's an interesting thing with Cap. Technically, because the head isn't severed from the body, that head to lower portion part is still alive.
Right. So it's still an animated half a Cap. He has control of his arms and a bloody stump of a waist.
If you get an I Am Legend kind of idea within, which I actually think is what something of the origins or the inspiration for the Marvel Zombie storyline is the idea of what if the monsters were sentient and then we become the monsters because we're the ones hunting and killing them. Now, of course, the zombies are eating us, so it's hard to really make that argument.
Right.
But you have the idea that if you have that, because eventually there's nothing left to eat and the zombies all have to go cold turkey. And in that universe, Cap could sew himself back together and get his body working again.
Wow.
And then he becomes the new Cap. And once he's, able to get his wits about him again, maybe he becomes the leader of the zombie Avengers, Maybe you get a world of zombie Avengers, because, once there's no one left to eat, we can all sort of come back to who we were because we can lose the hunger. And then it's just, what do we do as the animated dead forever?
Well, the thing is, you've eaten everything else in the world. So when you come back, ain't nothing left to eat. So you got to eat each other anyway.
Well, no, or you just actually stop eating. Maybe
and then you
whatever
starve to death. Oh yeah, you would starve to death.
I don't know. There's zombies. Do zombies need to eat? I mean, that's the thing.
But but I mean, if they get rid of the hunger, are they still zombies?
Yeah, they're still zombies.
They're still deteriorating?
I mean, as much as anything, I suppose.
So yeah, so then, I mean, they're just people then at that point, right?
Well, yeah.
If they don't have the hunger and they're just...
Yeah, they're just desiccated people. And it just becomes this different way of dealing with this universe. So it's an interesting idea and question, and there's a lot to unpack from it. But that's only in the comic books. And these ones are a little different and maybe different. But I would love to see that as an idea that once everything's left and the heroes are just left to be the heroes again, that they reclaim some sense of heroism. That maybe they're not even, like, for example, it's sort of they become the heroic zombie horde. Like if you're playing Magic and you're just going to throw down that mana to break down the wall. It's like, we can't, we need an army. I know we might be able to get one. We just
imagine if there was like a world populated with zombies and they have found a way to maintain their society by having like farmed people. right? They have some uninfected people, make sure that their supply does not get infected, and they farm and raise people, and they have their own society with factory farms like we do with cows, but with people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. Anything is technically possible, but, exactly what the the mechanics of zombies, because really, once you don't have muscles and sinews connecting your bones, those body parts shouldn't move anymore. And it's kind of it was an interesting thing about, one of the things they would talk about hysterical paralysis during World War I, which is that when someone would have a hysterical paralysis from shell shock, it didn't behave like paralysis, but it behaved how they would think paralysis might work. So they'd say, I can't move my arm, but they could still move their fingers. They could do some things that if the nerves were really severed, they wouldn't be able to do.
So it was a break in the software, not the hardware.
Exactly. So, when you look at, like, when a zombie's moving, you open up this question, like, how are these zombies modal? It's like they say, how do you have zombies, after winter? Because by winter, they all freeze and they probably break apart.
That and, like, the brain is pretty much all water. Mm-hmm. So how quickly does that dry out? So, I mean, like, if the brain is gone, if it's just an empty skull, I'm sure the brain, evaporates away much faster than tissue, than muscle or skin,
Yeah, there's no scientific understanding of zombies.
I would rather just believe that it's supernatural. Zombies. That makes more sense. Yeah,
exactly. And once it becomes supernatural, then you can really open up a lot of Then you can open up a lot of venues, because then it doesn't have to follow physical logic. It has to follow the psychological story logic of magic. And then we can be a zombie, but then we can also then reclaim our humanity as a zombie. So
that reminds
there's a lot you can do.
I just saw a little while ago that movie, The Green Knight.
Yes.
Terrible movie. And there's a really funny scene where there's supposedly a dead body in a cage, and his legs are hanging off the cage and dangling with his feet and metatarsals and everything attached. And my brother looks at it and he goes, "Man, can I get his ACL? Because, mine is busted." It's like everything. Well, but his ACL is still connected. His knee is still able to have like that. Yes. I think that's hilarious.
That's the fun of being a dead corpse. And I guess that makes me sad that movie was bad. I actually was really looking forward to that.
I mean, it seems like people who were fans of the story enjoyed it. For me, it seemed really, really childish and like simple, like a Saturday morning cartoon for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, it's a medieval fairy tale, man. There's a lot of fantasy logic that is involved. It's a lot of metaphorical logic.
Yeah.
This whole things with garters and such, So, so maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll be just the medieval nerd enough to really.
Right. If you have the proper context before going into it, I think it can be enjoyable as a piece of history, as opposed to a piece of.
I was hoping for something much more Terry Gilliam, but I guess who directed that? Do you know?
No,
it was somebody that's like actually not a bad director. So, okay, we'll have to see. But getting back to this story, good old Camp Lehigh, the center of all craziness in New Jersey. So, got to go to Jersey.
Indeed.
Before that, we should talk about that. Yes, we know Grand Central Station doesn't connect to New Jersey. But in this universe, they did build a line that did. That's why they're going there, because it's better. You have to understand this is a fictional universe and different choices were made. And someone decided, probably because of patronage, to build a line that goes from, rather than Penn Station or 33rd Street Station like the path, that there would be a line that would go from Grand Central to there. Because the problem is that Penn Station, it's not as grandiose as Grand Central, hence the name. Although now, as I understand it, with the Moynihan Station, it is actually up to snuff.
Oh, is that right?
I haven't been to the Moynihan Station.
I have not yet either.
but it's the same architect, so it has a lot of the same stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I've got to go check that out.
Oh, yeah. Well, Moynihan Station is supposed to be lovely. It's supposed to be what Penn Station used to be. Although you can also see what Penn Station used to be by going to Newark Penn Station, because it's literally the same station. Grand Central is probably the better station. So from a cinematic point of view, Grand Central is the better one, and that's why they just built that line to Jersey. And
they have the best tacos you can find anywhere.
I will take your word for that. I have not had a Grand Central Station taco ever, so that will have to be one of those things we do someday, Mozz. But from Grand Central Station, they do go. And actually, here's another note, to be fair. Although there is not a direct line from there, all the train lines do connect. So you could actually run a line from Grand Central to it. But honestly, who's doing all the switching on this? That's another big question that's never quite explained.
Right.
You know, but that's okay. We're assuming it's all done with StarkTech.
Superheroes don't need Metro cards.
Yeah. Well, train switching, it's a much more complex thing. Because you have to know where the tracks are going. You have to switch the different tracks. Because they all switch, you know. But, you know, also they had a car. Why didn't they just drive across the bridge?
Huh.
I mean, were the zombies on the bridge that bad?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, because it's not just the zombies. It's the debris of left cars that people have probably funneled all the gas out of. And they're just like an obstacle course that a car can't get through any longer.
Yeah, but they've got a shrinking car. So they can just onto it. Well, I guess it probably takes a long time to drive the shrinking car.
Yeah.
So you know, there's all these cost benefit analysis, but it's like, at a certain point, you have to ask, like, really, was this the most effective transit? We're going to assume yes. We're going to assume there's a whole cut scene where they go, okay, well, what if we go to here and here?
Yeah.
And we
Kramer
go
and
across
Newman
the bridge.
came and helped them out.
Yes. If we get the truck for free, that cuts all our overhead. Mother's Day. Oh, okay. That's some deep Seinfeld reference.
Deep cut.
Anyway, so they get there, happy days. They take the train. They go to New Jersey. Fortunately, the train goes near Camp Lehigh. Again, what luck.
I'm sure they picked the right train, too.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, like I said, that's all that stuff that was going on in that pre-planning meeting when they were discussing and going over it. So, okay. So we know that this train goes here. Fortunately, the pumps are still working, so everything going underneath the tunnels have not been flooded in. Like, one has to assume there's still, like, plenty of electricity flowing, that obviously we've got a lot of, this is a StarkTech world. We have to remember that. In a StarkTech world, because we even get that the train, the problem is that there's just, you know, the train will start, it just needs to get a push, and it's going to run just fine. Which, again, doesn't really make sense, except I guess it does if it's all StarkTech, you know.
Right.
But they get there and they realize that, oh, now we've got to go over the zombies. We get this scene with Cap fighting them. And this is one of the weirdest aspects of this story, I find, which is that the zombie outbreak starts on the West Coast. But by the time, and we see Cap and T'Challa and Hawkeye and Iron Man all coming in at that point in the Pacific Northwest to deal with the zombie outbreak. And now they're all back in New York by the end of it. So,
right, because they still have control of their powers. Wong was portaling them around wherever they wanted to go. And
well,
they
but
seem
Wong
to have
wouldn't
a
have
sense
been there. Wong
no,
was
but what
back.
I'm saying is, I mean, like, Iron Man could have flown them. He probably still knows how to fly a plane. You know,
Fair enough.
So they seemed like they had some sense of what because like the way they came out of those portals fighting, they knew what they were doing.
Well,
like,
exactly. They clearly had. I think they probably are sentient. They just have lost the ability to speak right now. Because all they can think of is their hunger. We have the Cap cut in half by the shield. That's sad. But, you know, then Bucky's got his shield, so that's cool. Covered in zombie gore, but still, it's his shield.
Yep.
And
So made of vibranium.
When they get to Camp Lehigh, and after the Cap zombie attack, and Sharon gets exploded, and that's when we realize that Hope is infected. I had a lot of people saying that they didn't need to sacrifice Hope. Vision could have cured her. Yada yada yada.
Right, but those are decisions you have to make on the fly. You don't have time to think that hard about things.
Well, here's the thing.
And you have to survive. The rest of them do.
But more to the point, I don't think Vision could have. I think even though he was able to reverse the zombification of Scott Lang's head, we didn't see him de-zombify anybody. Even and as an obvious point in this, he's chopping up T'Challa. I have to imagine that if he had let one of those zombies through and could do a full de-zombification, that's a much better thing to feed to Wanda.
No, but he that was never his real intention. It was all a ploy to get people to feed Wanda.
Well, he was trying to heal Wanda, and
I think he was his calculation was, if I just keep her fed, maybe someone else will figure out a solution, or maybe I will. But I'm just drawing people in to feed her. And then when he realizes what he's done, then he says, "Oh man, I made a mistake. I have to atone for what I did."
So do you think that maybe he did do a full de-zombification on Scott Lang, but then just chopped him up? No.
I think that's all that's left of Scott Lang, because he needed somebody to talk to. And I don't know, Scott was the one he decided to keep around. I don't know.
Well, no, I got to figure that, because he said he's been doing experiments, which makes me think he's been trying to de-zombie people, which is why I think just handing them the Mind Stone and telling them, good luck.
Yeah.
It's not going to help anything. And really, I think that's the darkest aspect of this, because we get them going to Wakanda. But what's weird about it is that clearly it looks like Thanos is inside of Wakanda at the end, or is he just landed in New York? That was one thing I wasn't quite clear on.
I didn't understand what the barrier was, but you're right. That did look like the force field around Wakanda.
Well, yeah, we see the force field around Wakanda and the zombies outside.
Right.
But then we do another reverse shot and we see Thanos in a city.
Inside. All right, so then that's over.
But we don't know. We don't know if that was Wakanda or was that New York City. So maybe Thanos just arrived in New York City with his 4 stones.
That hexagonal pattern definitely looked very much like the Wakandan force field.
Well, no, but we see the Wakanda fortress with
but we don't necessarily see that in the shot with Thanos. Oh, I see.
Yeah, the final shot with Thanos, we see him in a city with buildings.
Gotcha.
And that's where it's a little different. So that's the question of,
so, all right, so there is
he already in Wakanda, or is he in New York, just now landing in New York City and about to come to Wakanda to find that last stone?
Did he have all of them on his gauntlet?
He had all but the Mind Stone, yeah.
Yeah. Because all the dimension hopping,
because he would have had to go to New York to get the Time Stone from Zombie Doctor Strange. And that's probably how he got zombified himself. So, So it'll be very interesting what we get if we get back to this universe. And I do think from what we've seen with the Guardians of the Multiverse, I think we do get Spider-Man with the Cloak of Levitation. People have seen that image. So we think, obviously Levi, and because that's what we call him, is Levi and Peter become a team. Maybe Levi even teaches him some magic. We'll have to see where it goes. But yeah, there was just a new clip that dropped, which is like the mid-season, here's what's coming. And they've got some stuff we've already seen and some stuff we haven't. So there's a lot interesting that's going to be coming without a doubt. Any final thoughts on tonight's show?
No, I thought it was a fun one. But what I thought was interesting, the other day I sat down with my brother and we watched the first episode of What If with Captain Carter. And I don't think an episode has been able to capture that same charm that first episode had. They've been good, but I don't know if they've been as good as the first one. For me, I guess at least.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. I don't want to get into this whole, this was the best one, this was not as good kind of conversation, because I actually think that they're all pretty good.
Right.
But I do think Captain Carter had a great sort of gee whiz quality to it, where you really felt the power of and for what it's worth, that was a Golden Age story. That was a World War II story. That was a hero and a battle.
Right. There was
And
no
the
gray area.
sadness-
There was no ambiguity about who was the good guy or the bad guy. Maybe that's it. And I guess we got spoiled by the what if concept by now, and we're expecting craziness, and it's like that was still new to us.
What I think the Captain Carter story has going for it is both that it's that whiz bang, Golden Age, beauty, it is disambiguousness, and the fact that the tragedy at the end is one we're already familiar with. We know about,
Save the Last Dance, yeah.
Yeah, say that it's a replay of what we've already seen. So on one level, we hope it's going to be a happier ending, but when it is just the same sad ending, we can accept it.
Yeah. I'm glad Captain Carter won't have to run into zombie Captain America.
Well, we'll see what happens. That's the thing about it. These are multiverses, and if we're going to have a Guardians of the Multiverse, which is the big rumor, and the final few episodes, we may get those moments where it's like we have to deal with all of the stories all of the what if possibilities that did exist and don't exist. And it'll be interesting to see how it all ties in, especially if Uatu becomes sort of a disgruntled, Q for the team, or M for the team,
Right.
Uatu's, I cannot interfere, but, there's some awful things. I'm just going to leave on the television set right here. And if you look and you decide to attack that, who am I I can't stop you. That would violate my oath. I'm just sitting here on the moon watching TV. Oh, look at this multiverse. Goodness, that looks like a multiverse about to be destroyed forever.
That's funny.
Anyway. Yeah, but we will have to see what happens with all of it. You're very hopeful that it's going to end well, and I think it will, because I think we've gotten a lot of good with it, I think that the darkness of the last few episodes have been hard, but my big prediction here's my big prediction. Next week's episode, Wednesday's episode, tomorrow's episode, for us, it's tomorrow for us, for everyone else, if you're listening to it, it would be for the next week from this time, but yeah, I think that's going to be a real uplifting one. As uplifting as the T'Challa Guardians of the Galaxy episode, where it is actually going to be about Killmonger making peace and using his powers for good.
Right, that's like, who is, because if they're going to Wakanda, somebody has the mantle of the Black Panther. Who is that?
Well, that would be T'Chaka. That would be the father. Because because this would take place before T'Chaka is killed. So if he goes there, he's got no beef with T'Challa at that time. His beef is with T'Chaka. And if T'Chaka says, I've made an error, and, you can even do a whole weirdness where, this is the universe where T'Challa disappeared as a child.
Right.
And when T'Chaka comes, and when Killmonger comes, he's like, I was a fool, and forgive me. Please come and take your rightful place by my side. Right. And there also
the zombie apocalypse is here.
Yeah, or anything else. And it also might be this idea that, there's going to be these, because we do see like some robots marching on Wakanda, that once people find out about Wakanda, like maybe Tony Stark hears the stories of Wakanda and decides, well, let's see what we can find with this this interesting source of energy.
Yeah, there's like 200 million zombies huddled up around this invisible dome. We don't know what's going on here.
Well, that's a different universe. So this next one is in its own universe where Wakanda has not fallen. So yeah, it's going to be interesting regardless, but I'm looking forward to it.
Right on.
Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I think we got to it.
I think we got to it well, and I'm looking forward to the next episode and every episode beyond that, and we go from there. And if you have a thought on this and you'd like to tell us your thoughts, you can always call us and leave a message for our show at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES, because this is part of the Capes and Lunatics Network, as well as Enough Said, for the time being. And leave us a message, and if they do that, or if they just want to write something and they want to write to you, Mozz, how can they do that?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you guys can always check out our Patreon over at our Linktree thing. Look in the show notes. I think it's Capes and Lunatics linktr.ee. I could be wrong on that. Anyway, look at our show notes. We've got a link it'll take you to the Patreon merch, stuff like that. Go down to the show notes, click on Amazon, go buy Podlife the book. And then if you want to talk to me, write me in that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitter when I live tweet things like Stargirl when it comes back at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another evening looking into the abyss, observing all and doing nothing. Enough said.